stay with our reputation as a nation, take a closer look at the impact of the state capture report findings. It's a tough one. On the one hand, our president's been open about the need to clean up corruption. On the other, there are a lot of people in high places who have been implicated, and the president himself has been slammed for standing by while state capture occurred. Let's bring in Tshepo Matseba, finance and business journalist, also the CEO of Reputation First, which is a brand reputation consultancy. Thank you very much for coming into studio. I understand it was sparked literally by load shedding, but it's lovely to have you here. You listened to what Thebe Kalafeng had to say, but if we focus on state capture, it is a difficult one because on the one hand, we are signalling to the world that we will not tolerate state capture and corruption anymore. On the other, however, we're airing our dirty laundry for everybody to see. Ultimately, do you think it's going to boil down to a good thing or a bad thing that we're doing?
Good evening, Sally, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Of course, we believe that the whole discussion about state capture demonstrates that as a country, we're showcasing transparency, and that transparency is a strong essence of our constitution as a constitutional democracy. The difficulty with it is that transparency has to be followed through by actions, and in reputation management, the word consistency comes in. It's very, very important. It also applies in brand reputation itself, therefore, once you've now laid all this in public and you've said that there will be consequences, that the consequences must happen, they must happen quickly, and they must happen consistently. And the messaging around these consequences need to be crafted in an as honest as possible a manner. And the authorities who are responsible for this work can't be seen to be inconsistent or creating a path or a narrative that protects some factions of a particular organization, in this specific instance, because the central figure in this scandal or in this disaster that we're facing locally and globally is the African National Congress, the ruling party, the ANC. So if we talk about the challenges that this faces, it means that for the ANC's leadership team and for the country's leadership team, who's led by the ANC as a government, there has to be consistent in the application of that those principles and the applications of the law. That means, as we say in our constitution, that everyone will be equal before the law. So we've got to try and apply that consistently.
So consistency is key. Definitely the ANC has always talked about collective responsibility, but there is, I think, a stark difference in perception between President Jacob Zuma and President Cyril Ramaphosa. Many people are saying, oh, well, everyone's implicated here. No one's coming out covered in glory. But from the outside, President Cyril Ramaphosa has, I think,
one group is very happy with him and his performance, but another group is happy about the revelations that came out of the state capture, specifically the state capture report, and his quest and positioning around defeating corruption. In terms of the other issues that he's facing, he has the responsibility to an extent in terms of survival to be transparent and upfront. To an extent that he can. We know that, the prima facie principle applies when there are legal issues, but at this level of the controversy, and when you look at the global headlines and what investors are seeing globally, and what the country internally, the domestic levels of trust, it may be required of him, reputationally speaking, to start speaking and speak soon enough rather than later and say, this is the position and these are the fundamentals and the facts. We know that he spoke, but a lot of people, both locally and internationally, are actually saying maybe it's not enough, that he has not taken people and countries into his confidence.
So I've picked up two themes from you. Consistency is what builds a reputation. So does communication. And you're suggesting that the president really does need to start talking more about what happened on his farm. But in terms of restoring our reputation, we've heard from Thebe Kalafeng that actually we're not doing that badly. But we also know there are a lot of problems that get in the way of investment, for example. What would you say we need to do as a country to improve our reputation internationally, but also for citizens, for people who are looking at our government going, you know what, you failed us?
Yeah, look, we need a yes. You know, when you look at countries like the US and you look at countries like China, they've got a common theme that they're working towards, and we are missing that common theme. When it does exist, there are not enough resources to articulate that common theme. At Brand South Africa, they talk about inspiring new ways, but for the inspiring new ways message to be centralized to citizens' life in a way that we had Ubuntu, and in a way that we had the spirit of collectivism during the World Cup, the spirit of working together, and that inspiration. For that to work, you need to put resources. That means you need to put people and money to support this campaign so that we can speak a common language. But importantly, you can promise all the great stuff in terms of brand and reputation and the work that we do, but you also need delivery. So at a street level, at a home, at a township level, at a street level where I live, where you live, service delivery needs to happen, and again it has to happen continuously and consistently, so that, because a brand is truly a promise that is fulfilled. So if we promise things but the delivery is poor consistently, we're going to have problems. Investors will not make it. So if there's the reality that we're facing, for example, around the energy sector, then if the political will is there to fix the problem, we have to fulfill at some point. We can't be sitting here 10 years from now and talking about what has happened 10 years ago and blaming the past all the time, because at some stage, while the past determines what happens next, at some stage we need to get the work done. Unemployment is a difficult challenge. One of the fears that were raised in a recent study, I think by Edelman, that issue around South Africa being citizens being anxious about unemployment, and when they hear about unemployment, we need to fix that problem, and we can't just talk about fixing it or delegate it completely to the private sector. It's a holistic solution that needs to be provided by all stakeholders. The last important issue that maybe it's important to highlight openly, since we're talking about state capture, is the intent and the willingness to get rid of corruption. Hire competent people, hire competent managers. If you look at what the Auditor General revealed in the reports recently about municipalities, I mean, we're facing a disaster where municipal managers are hired as CAs, as auditors themselves, as finance managers, but they can't even produce their own financial statements. That speaks about incompetence. So are we hiring the right people?
Yeah, you've made some excellent points. Consistency, communication, follow through, and create a culture of clean governance. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. Really wonderful insights. That was Tshepo Matseba, finance and business journalist, also CEO of Reputation First, a brand reputation consultancy.